Well, in case you missed this new addition to the setup, it debuted over in my secondary channel, The Break Room of Geeks, but just in case you missed it, what do we think? I'm still getting used to it. I'd hoped that it would, light up some of the ones that are kind of in the dark and shadow a little bit more. I'm not sure it's doing that too much, but I kind of like it anyway. Hey! New episodes of Doctor Who are currently airing at time of recording and probably at time of release. And if you are outside of the UK, they are airing on Disney Plus. And I think Disney has made a very crucial error in terms of how it has handled Doctor Who. And they made it right at the start, and there's really no fixing it. I will say what that is, but I want to lay a little bit of groundwork first. Let me start by saying this is not a Disney's telling RTD how to make it. They're making him make it more kiddie and all that. No. No, they're not. I've said this before. I've said it, and I will say it again now. Season 1 in particular, and I expect by the time we're done, Season 2 as well, are very much in line with RTD. There is nothing, and I do mean nothing, that was present in Season 1 or as far into Season 2 as we are at this point that is not the kind of stuff that he already would have done. Space Babies totally is in line with stuff like Love and Monsters. Or heck, even some of the goofier moments of Rose are in line with Space Babies.
Pizza.
Same with the finale, Empire of Death. Very much in line with the kind of finale he does, especially if you want to compare it to something like, say, Last of the Time Lords. Now, you can argue whether he's doing it better or worse than he used to, but he is running the same playbook. None of this is stuff he wouldn't otherwise do. And if he's just not as good at it as he used to be, that's not Disney's fault. Now, we do know, before anybody tries to point this out, Disney does give him notes, but we also know he's under no obligation to follow them. He did end up taking notes on board when it came to the church on Ruby Road and the scene with the cop, but he added that in because he thought it was a good suggestion. And frankly, it was. It's a good scene and the episode benefits from it. And also understand the note was just suggesting a scene of that nature. He wasn't given a script and lines that he had to put in. That's not how this works. But besides the fact, can we get rid of the demonization of getting notes from the studio or the producers or whatever? That's not an inherently bad thing. Feedback is never a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you are obligated to take those notes on board and you don't have a choice. And there is zero indication that that is going on with Doctor Who and Russell T Davies. So when I say Disney made a mistake, I don't mean they're screwing it up because, as I've said repeatedly and will continue to say, there is no indication whatsoever they actually have creative control or even creative input beyond just sending a few notes going, well, we think maybe this. And then Russell is free to ignore it. So that's not what we're talking about. The other thing that I want to mention before I bring up what their big mistake is that it is at this point very debatable how successful Doctor Who has been for Disney. How successful it has or hasn't been kind of depends on who you ask. It's basically what it breaks down to at this point. The general word that I have seen and I have heard from people who I know who are closer to this production than I am, and reminder, I'm not close to it in any way, shape, or form, but I do know some people who have at least a tangential connection. What I am hearing is that Disney is not happy with what they've been getting, not necessarily because the viewing numbers aren't good on Doctor Who, but because the people who appear to have come to watch Doctor Who aren't sticking around. So that is kind of the general flavor of stuff that I've been hearing. But there's other stuff out there. Some of it has some weight behind it. Some of it is wild rumors. I saw something a little bit ago about the notion that Disney would buy Doctor Who, which, no. The BBC has no motivation to sell it, and at least from what I'm hearing, I don't think Disney has a lot of motivation to buy it. But even if we set the nonsense aside, even if Disney is very happy with the numbers, if they're getting exactly what they want out of the deal, they still screwed up. There was still something that they did, or rather failed to do, that if it is not doing great, would have helped it do better. And even if it is doing great, would have helped it perform even more successfully. And it's a very simple thing. They really needed to buy out Warner Brothers Discovery's remaining contract to be airing the Revival series on Max. Reminder, Doctor Who at this point can pretty much cleanly be broken up into 3 eras, or at least if you're outside the UK, because if for no other reason, it's broken up by what platforms you can watch them on. You have the classic era running from 1963 to 1989. That, if you're in the US, is on Tubi and BritBox. There is the Revival era, which kicked off in 2005 with RTD, Russell T Davies, as the initial showrunner, then through Moffat and through Chibnall's era as showrunner. So this takes us all the way through The Power of the Doctor, which was the last story for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And then we reach, I'm just calling it the modern era. You want to call it the Disney era, you can. I don't want to because, again, it makes it sound like they have creative control, and they don't. But if you want to call it that, fine. We'll call it, for today's purposes, the Disney era. And that is the David Tennant specials, where he is the 14th Doctor, and the new stuff with Ncuti Gatwa. So those are our 3 eras, and they're on 3 different platforms. That Revival era I mentioned currently is on Max. It had previously been on Netflix. It's aired on cable on various networks over the years. It aired on Sci-Fi for a little while. Then it was on BBC America. Right now it's on Max. And then the new stuff is on Disney+. And I think Disney really kneecapped the potential for what Doctor Who could be for them from a business standpoint by not getting their hands on the Revival era, the one that's currently on Max. Now, I'll get a little bit more into why. Some of you probably already figured out why. And honestly, this isn't going to be the longest or most in-depth video because it kind of doesn't need to be. But let's kind of acknowledge the reality of how likely is it that Warner Bros. Discovery would have let them buy out the contract. Because it's easy for me to say they should have done it and they didn't, but there's also the possibility that they may never have had the opportunity. Or maybe they tried and Warner Bros. Discovery wouldn't let them. Because while you might be thinking, well, like, obviously Doctor Who wasn't doing well enough for Warner Bros. Discovery for them to re-up the contract to continue to be the home for new seasons. So it wasn't doing well enough for them to do that. So it probably isn't pulling in that much for them. You'd think they'd want the money, especially given the current state of Warner Bros. Discovery and how much cost cutting and other nonsense they're pulling. Here's the thing about that, though. There is another aspect that I think a lot of people don't realize that is at play in general within corporate mentality, but is especially at play within the entertainment industry. It's not enough for you to make money on a deal. It is important that you not do anything that allows your competitors to make money. This was why, back before Disney just flat out bought Fox and everything that they had, this was why Fox would not sell the rights to Fantastic Four or Daredevil back to Marvel and Disney, even though they weren't doing anything with them, Daredevil especially, for a while. Because, yeah, they definitely weren't getting a lot of money out of those properties, and they could have sold it back and gotten something, but the thing is, if you're the executive who signs off on selling those rights back to Marvel and Disney in that case, then whatever successes they have with that property is considered money you should have been able to make with it. While the reality might be you can't figure out what to do with it, just get what you can and let somebody else take it. If they succeed with it, that makes you look really bad because not only could you not think to do what they did that they made all the money back when you had the property, but you now gave your competition a boost. You gave them a win. Why would you do that? So this is a mentality that is very, very much in play. And it's probably the major reason why a lot of properties get just held on to even as the person who owns them doesn't do anything with them. You actually, at this point, see that almost more in video games. Like, again, to pick on Warner Brothers, there's a ton of stuff that they own through various acquisitions that they've bought various studios over the years that they have done and will do nothing with. Same with Activision. Same with Microsoft. They own the rights to all these various video games, most of which they won't even re-release, much less put out sequels to, regardless of the demand. But they also won't sell them. They won't sell them back to the original creators or studio or to anybody else. Because even though they are making no money off them, they would rather sit on it than let somebody else make money off of it. That is very much a mentality in the corporate world. So that is a possibility that Warner Brothers Discovery was never going to let Disney buy out however many years were left on the contract to have the revival era of Doctor Who air on Max. That having been said, with the current state of Warner Brothers, with how much they are selling, shutting down, throwing into a vault for tax reasons, with everything that they are doing, I would say that this is a point in time where they probably kind of need to take whatever they can get. And I am more inclined to think that they would have been willing to play ball. It's just a question of whether they asked for more than Disney was willing to give, which is another possibility. But if Disney was going to go in hard on Doctor Who to the point of contributing financially to it, which they do, they should have taken the extra step. And here's why. Unless you are doing a proper reboot, continuity reset, which they didn't, and I'm not saying they should have. I don't want that for Doctor Who. I never want that for Doctor Who. It is a unique show in that it builds in a soft reboot all on its own thanks to the regeneration. So I don't ever want to see it rebooted, but just logistically, unless you're going to do a complete continuity reboot, they shot themselves in the foot so hard by not having the back catalog on it. Because think about it. They bring Doctor Who. There are two kinds of people who are going to watch it on Disney+. There are the people who are already fans, who already know the stuff, and maybe who even got a Disney Plus subscription so that they could watch it. So there's them, and you've pretty much got them. You have the thing that they want. You're holding it hostage. They'll pay the price. But then there's your subscribers that you already have. And what you want from them, and you also want this from the existing fans, but the idea of selling Doctor Who to a whole new group of people who haven't seen it before, the appeal there is keeping them on your platform. Now, I mentioned before, there's word that Disney, part of why they may not be happy with the results they've gotten on Doctor Who is people who showed up to Disney Plus aren't sticking around to watch a bunch of other stuff is because, well, there isn't really too much else like Doctor Who on Disney Plus. There isn't really too much else like Doctor Who on television, kind of full stop. But while that doesn't mean that the show itself can't be successful for them, it does mean that people who are here specifically for that don't have a lot else to see on Disney Plus. So they're coming, watching Doctor Who, and then leaving. Exactly what the numbers are on that, we don't know, because they don't publish their numbers. Of course not. That would be helpful. But when it comes to pulling in new audiences, which they clearly wanted, they did a decent push for the specials and especially for season 1 as a jumping on point. So you get new people on board. You get people who watch this, have never seen Doctor Who before, and they go, oh, this is fun. Now what do? They wait until a new season. You know what they could have been doing? They could have been going, oh, this show's a lot of fun. Holy cow, look at all this back catalog I can watch. Look at all these episodes. Look at these multiple different incarnations of the Doctor I get to discover all right here in one place on Disney Plus. But that's not what happened because you didn't bring it over. You didn't pay what was needed to get it on your own platform. And while I think within narrative, within the episodes themselves, it was not only fair, it was a good thing for especially the Tenet specials to be connected to the older shows and to make references. And Ncuti Gatwa's has done that less. But the impression, even with that, even if you take out the Tenet specials, the impression is always, this is the latest adventure in a long series of adventures. And if you want to see more of this person's adventures with other companions and other aliens, You can head on over to a different platform completely. Come on, Disney. It was right there. You had the opportunity to get new people into Doctor Who, just get them in with that first taste of the first season, and if they liked it enough to check out the back catalog, you would have had lifelong fans. You would have actually built something of value there. And I think it would have boosted no matter what the current state of Doctor Who on Disney Plus is, whether it's doing well or badly, this would have made it do better. Not to mention the fact that I feel pretty confident saying you ask most Doctor Who fans where they should start, they're not going to say the church on Ruby Road. And they're definitely not going to say the Star Beast. And just to be sure I wasn't completely off with that belief, here was a poll I ran on my channel. This is by no means definitive data, and while there were some things I would have liked to have put on there, but YouTube only lets you put 4 options, I still feel the fact that the best jumping on point that this current era has is literally the bottom voted option, and Rose, the start of the revival era, is overwhelmingly the top recommendation. It's just one more way that Disney botched this. Such a huge appeal of Doctor Who since the revival has been the sense of history to it. The fact that it's been around so long, it's done so much, that you can go back and see all this stuff. At least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but at least for me, both that sense of history and also the ability to go and see it for myself was a big part of what got me really excited to become a fan of this show. It is, in essence, what you've been trying to do with Marvel. Because the idea with how you've approached a lot of these things is there's plenty of stuff that you've introduced in the shows and then have brought into the movies. Now, you can debate whether or not it has worked well, but let's set that aside for a minute. Again, we're not really talking about quality of the product here. We're talking about synergy. You have a character like Kamala Khan show up in the Marvels, and if people have only been watching the movies and not checking out the show, they might go, oh, who's that character? And then you realize, oh, there's a whole show I can watch to find out more about that character. Or they watch the new Captain America and go, oh, boy, there's this existing relationship that Sam has with this new guy who's Falcon. And there's references to some other stuff. I wonder what all that was. Oh, look, there's a whole show you can go onto Disney Plus and see. That thing that you've been trying to build with Marvel, it's pre-existing with Doctor Who. It was already there, ready to serve. And you just didn't do it. You just let the thing that could have really gotten you a dedicated fan base as opposed to an idle one, because I'm sorry, at this point, I don't know how very many people discovering Doctor Who on Disney Plus for the first time are going to end up as devoted fans, because how are they supposed to dig into this? You can't just take the current iteration of a thing and keep going forward from there and expect to get anywhere near the devotion of people who have access to really deep dive into all of it. That is what makes Doctor Who fans as devoted and obsessive as we are. There's so much that we can take in, and like stuff that is of the same caliber. Because yeah, you can say there's so much Star Wars you can take in, but let's be honest, up until recently, it was 6 movies and then stuff like comics and video games, and it was completely different mediums and all of questionable canon, even before it was declared non-canon by Disney and the Legends branding or whatever. But Doctor Who has an entire library of stuff, all of equal canon priority. Yeah, there's all the extra stuff too. There's Big Finish audio adventures, there's comics, there's novels, but it's a show. And that show has been going since 1963. And not that I'm saying Disney should have bought out the rights for the classic era. I think that would have been a harder sell, to be honest, just because of the jumping quality, if nothing else, that you got from the 2005 era. But I think that era, you absolutely missed a trick. And since I know some folks are going to bring it up, yes, in 2005 when the revival era started, that got a whole bunch of people on board as fans, despite the fact that access to the classic era was not easy. But that happened in a completely different media landscape. Now, access to the revival era, and the classic era for that matter, is fairly easy, but it's just not all in one place. And for folks who just don't happen to already have all these services, having to buy more stuff just to see the other stuff this one show has is disheartening. It was right there. And again, maybe Warner Brothers wasn't willing to sell it. But Disney, if you didn't at least try, if you didn't at least make an offer, then that is 100% on you. And this isn't just, personal bitterness because I keep maintaining a Max subscription because it's easier to access the stuff there than it is to bust out my DVD collection every time I need to check something or rewatch an episode or pull a clip. But at the same time, like, I would like to drop my Max subscription. I would have thanked you for that, Disney. I'm still stuck over there for now. I don't know how much time is left on that. And you know what? Maybe if Disney keeps Doctor Who on for longer than Max has left on their exclusivity deal, maybe Disney will snap it up then, but it'll probably be too late. And honestly, the indication seems to be that the call is going to be made on whether or not to do a third season after this one airs. And so Disney might not even stick with it long enough for the Max deal to lapse anyways. So it still might not be an option even then. It's just, it was something that would have put you on such amazing footing. And honestly, I would have said, don't even have them officially up on the surface until the new episodes start airing. So that people check out a new episode and then go, oh, let's check out all this old stuff. I don't think this was that complicated an idea. Apparently, it was too much for them. And again, you had the money. You can't tell me Disney couldn't have afforded it. You can't tell me Warner Brothers might not have been willing to play ball. But again, given the state of them, I bet you they would have. It was a simple thing. They didn't do it. Well, that's my thoughts on that. I probably not what people were expecting, or some people I'm sure are hoping for. Look, at this point, I am no defender of Disney, but Disney woke. First of all, it was all hollow in the first place. Second of all, who cares? Third of all, Doctor Who has always been woke since the start of the frickin' show. So yeah, no, it was never going to be any of that. But what are your thoughts on what I think it was in terms of their major mistake? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like and share and subscribe. Those all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. What I really want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council, and I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Quite Bearish, Zubin Lutfula, Mara G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Andre, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. And also Toka Blue Hoovian, Auntie Kate 808, and Tracy Scrabbit. If you'd like to hear me try and pronounce your name correctly while these guys chitter in my ears, check out the reward tiers on the Patreon. Yes, I hear you.